Hello, everybody. This is Goose, and you're watching On With the Show. And today we're going to talk about some this. We're going to talk about something. That happened in real time in just over a weekend. And if you haven't been paying attention, but you probably haven't. You probably because only people in California was probably paying attention to this, and that is the implosion of Eric Swalwell's candidacy for governor of the state of California. He was the leading Democrat candidate for the governorship of the state of California. And within 3 or 4 days, he has been forced, yes, I'm going to say it, forced to withdraw his candidacy from the ticket, from the California governorship. And we're going to go through this I would say about as much as I was seeing it, and almost in like real time, because it started like on Thursday, Friday, and then just kept going and going. It was like watching someone die of 1,000 cuts very slowly in this candidacy. And we're going to get into this. And I know, like I said, normally, and I know a lot of people say, Goose, you normally don't talk about politics. Well, yeah, I normally don't talk about politics, but when I saw this going on, oh my goodness. I could not believe what I was watching, and it was just it kept getting worse and worse and worse for Mr. Swalwell. So we're gonna get right into it as I got a plane flying by. So if you hear the plane, just wave. I'm gonna wait for it to pass by. There it goes. This sometimes happens, the dog barks, the plane flies over, and I'm recording, so it don't matter. But we're gonna get into this. Let me switch over to the OBS, and we're gonna get right into this because I can't believe what happened. All right, so it was reported on the San Francisco Chronicle by Alexei Kozov and Sophia Balag on the 10th, just a few days ago. And it is saying here that Eric Swalwell, here it is, a woman who worked for nearly 2 years for Rep. Eric Swalwell, the leading candidate for the governor for California governor, said she had sexual encounters with him while he was her boss and alleged he twice sexually assaulted her while she was too intoxicated to consent. Yes, I said the words. I'm reading it right from the article, okay? Swalwell did not respond to any of the former staffer's specific allegations made in a series of interviews with the Chronicle and provided a statement Friday. Here's the statement Friday. These allegations are false. They're false and come on the eve of an election against the frontrunner for California governor. For nearly 20 years, I have served the public as a prosecutor and a congressman and have always protected women. I will defend myself with the facts and, where necessary, bring legal action. Yes, this was apparently something, I'm going to get into this a little later, that he did quite often. He was going to bring legal action. My focus in the coming days is to be with my wife and children to defend our decades of service against these lies. Late Thursday, an attorney for Swalwell sent a cease and desist letter to the women saying she had made false statements accusing Mr. Swalwell of sexual assault and non-consensual sexual encounter and threatening to sue her if she did not retract her allegations. Yes, that is something I guess he does quite often. I'll get into that in a little bit. Is that on Friday afternoon, shortly after the Chronicle published an initial version of this story, Swalwell allies, including both chairs of his campaign, Democrat reps Jimmy Gomez of Los Angeles and Adam Gray of Turlock in Stanislaus County, began withdrawing their endorsements and calling on him to drop out of the gubernatorial race. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, one of Swalwell's most powerful allies, also called him to leave the race. The woman said Swalwell began pursuing her within weeks after she was hired at age 21 to work in the Democrats' district office in Castro Valley in 2019. Swalwell messaged her on Snapchat. She said sending messages of his privates and seeking nude pictures of her in return. She said Swalwell, who was married instead of 17 years her senior at age 45, tried to kiss her in a car, and when she drove him home from a donor meeting one night, driving him to another event weeks later. She said Swalwell pulled out his Johnson in the car and asked her to perform stuff on him. That's all I want to get. You could read it here. She said she did so. She did so in the parking lot in September 2019. The woman said Swalwell invited her out for drinks and she became severely intoxicated. And that she does not even remember the rest of the night. She said she woke up naked in Swalwell's hotel bed and could feel the effect of intimacy. I'm trying to keep this clean as much as possible. There are certain things I want to keep clean and certain things I think that should be said. She said Swalwell distanced himself from her afterward and the relationship faded. 5 years later, the woman said she attended an April 2024 charity gala where Swalwell was honored. The woman who no longer worked for Swalwell said that they met for drinks afterward, during which she became inebriated again. This kind of sounds like a pattern, all right? And that she remembers only the snippets of the night, including pushing Swalwell away and telling him no, while he allegedly forced himself on her. The woman texted a friend 3 days later and said that she was sexually assaulted by Swalwell. She wrote in a series of messages reviewed by the Chronicle that she had blacked out, but woke up once during it and even told him to stop at one point. All right, so this is the article here that has gotten him into incredible trouble. But this is only one allegation, one woman. Wait a minute. No, it's not. Let's go to CNN. It says here, exclusive, 4 women describe sexual misconduct by Rep. Eric Swalwell, including a former staff who says he raped her. I'm going to say go that far. A former staffer of Eric Swalwell, a leading Democrat candidate for California governor, says that the congressman raped her when she was heavily intoxicated and left her bruised and bleeding, an allegation Swalwell strongly denies. And she says here, I was pushing him off of me, saying no, the woman told CNN of the incident, which happened in 2024 after she had stopped working in Swalwell's office. He didn't stop. She said it was the second time Swalwell had non-consensual sexual contact with her while she was drunk. Let that sink in. In 2019, when she was still working for him, she said she woke up naked with him in a hotel room after a heavy night of drinking, and I don't know why this came up. One of the hazards of doing this, sometimes little things come up. Heavy drinking, she said that she had no memory of what happened, but could feel physically that she had sexual contact with 3 other women. With CNN also allegedly various kinds of sexual misconduct by the Democrat congressman, including Swalwell, sending them unsolicited explicit messages or nude photos. One woman who connected online with Swalwell over her interest in Democratic politics says she ended up extremely drunk inside his hotel room after a night out with the congressman with little memory of what occurred. Earlier in the night at a bar, he kissed her and touched her leg without her consent. Another woman who described receiving unsolicited nude messages from Swalwell was social media creator Ali Samarco. She said she initially reached out to the congressman on Twitter to discuss politics. I truly never thought he would respond. I had 1,000 followers at the time, she said, and he actually responded. Swalwell denies the women's allegations. This is what he says. And he even put out a video, and I don't have the direct video. These allegations are false and come on the eve of an election against the front runner for governor. Swalwell said in a statement to CNN, for nearly 20 years, I've served the public as a prosecutor, as a congressman. I've always protected women. Always protected women. All right. I will defend myself with the facts and where necessary bring legal action. Okay. Then it gets even worse. In fact, I do have that video. Let me bring that video up. I have this video from, I think, his ex account as I'm waiting for it to load. This shows you, how much of that it's live.
About me today through anonymous allegations. I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false.
They're false.
Absolutely false.
Absolutely false.
They did not happen. They have never happened.
They've never happened.
I will fight them with everything that I have.
Yes, he will.
They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the front-runner candidate for governor in California.
Actually, not really.
I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am.
Yes, we do.
For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress,
he's been serving
as
himself.
A prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims.
Really?
That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
All right, so let me just give you a little bit of clue with Eric Swalwell. So first of all, Eric Swalwell is also he's also been implicated in a honeypot scheme where he basically had an affair with a Chinese spy named Fang Fang. And by the way, if you're gonna have an affair with a spy, let it be someone with like a name like Fang Fang. That sounds like something clear right out of a James Bond movie or something. Fang Fang. Yeah, this is like a James Bond villain. I had sex with Fang Fang. And so, and then of course he's also most notably one of his more embarrassing moments is when he was on CNN being interviewed and he broke wind so loud that it was like you could hear it on the mic, and it was just one of the most embarrassing moments ever for anybody. It's like, but for this guy to sit here and say, I've been fighting for women's rights and all this stuff, it comes off as just absolutely, just disgusting. Let's go, because it gets even worse. So he goes on, he puts out this post on Instagram, and one of his colleagues, Anna Paulina Luna, decides, no, she's moving to oust Swalwell from the House over assault allegations. This was reported on the 4th by Sarah Davis. It goes on to say Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida, on Saturday said she would file a motion, and she did. She filed that motion today to expel California Rep. Eric Swalwell from office after the Democrat was hit with sexual assault allegations. Now I'm gonna say something real here. These are allegations. But the allegations are starting to pile up. It's one thing if it's one woman. It's another thing. Well, now that 4 women have come forward and have said the same allegations, it becomes a pattern. It's like how Bill Cosby got caught. It's how Harvey Weinstein got caught. More and more women came forward and started to be like, they started not becoming allegations anymore. They started becoming the truth. Again, this is from the Hill. She goes on to say, I'm filing a motion to expel Eric Swalwell from Congress. The Republican lawmaker wrote on X. A former staffer of Swalwell accused a House member in California gubernatorial candidate of sexually assaulting her twice when she was too drunk to consent in a new report from the San Francisco Chronicle published Friday. CNN reported 3 additional allegations from women that the congressman sent them inappropriate messages and nude pictures. Now, dude, if they've got the nude pictures, you can't really you cannot run away from those. I mean, Swalwell has firmly denied the sexual assault allegations amid mounting calls from the Democrat leaders and others for him to end his bid for the governor. The lawmakers called the sexual assault claims flat false in a video posted on X, which I just showed you. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They never happened. I will fight them with everything I have. They also come on the eve of an election. Again, he's going to keep bringing this up, where I have been the front-runner candidate for governor of California. He has not been the front-runner. He's been the front-running Democrat, but he's not been the front-runner. And I'm going to show you in a little bit what I mean by that, but he's not been the front runner. He's been the front running Democrat in all of this. Expulsion is the most serious consequence a member of Congress can face, and it requires a 2/3 majority vote in the House. Only 6 members of the House of Representatives have been expelled. It goes through the history. Last one was, of course, George Santos just a couple of years ago. The Hill has reached out to Swalwell's congressional office for comment. Luna worked jointly with Republican and Democrat lawmakers to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and she has been a staunch advocate for victims of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Let's keep on going, because this gets even worse for him. This is from Eyewitness News 7. This is from in San Francisco. This is from my own stomping grounds. Eric Swalwell's staff horrified, issue statement following sexual assault allegations. This is from the ABC 7 Bay Area digital staff and Tara Campbell, also on Saturday the 7th. San Francisco, new developments in the developments in the sex assault investigation involving California candidate for governor and Bay Area Congressman Eric Swalwell. The ABC News staff says they obtained an unsigned statement from Swalwell's staffers on Saturday. It read, in part, "We stand with our former colleague and other women who have come forward. We believe we should stand with them too." It goes on to say they are horrified by the allegations against Swalwell. Here's now it gets even worse. The Manhattan District Attorney, their district attorney's office, on Saturday announced it has now investigating a claim from one of Swalwell's former staffers. She told CNN she was heavily intoxicated after a night of drinking with Swalwell. And this guy, like I said, the same thing we've read before. The DA's office issued a statement on Saturday urging anyone with knowledge of the allegations to come forward. The staffer is now one of 4 women to accuse Swalwell of sexual misconduct. ABC Eyewitness News has not independently verified the allegations made of the Chronicle or CNN. So they're basically saying that, these are allegations. Uncorroborated and unspecified rumors that Swalwell behaved inappropriately with female staffers have circulated on social media for weeks. But the Chronicle story is the first reported account of someone making a direct accusation. CNN also published a story that appeared to feature the same woman's allegations, though she was not named, as well as allegations from several women that Swalwell sent them inappropriate sexual messages. Jeez. Eric Swalwell does not have a political future, as they say. Put a fork in him. He's done, Melissa Michelson said. Political science professor at Menlo College. I would not be surprised if he, after careful consideration, is talking to his family, etc., decides to pull out from the race and resign his seat in Congress. That is what we have been that's what we have seen in the past, especially on the Democratic side of the House. It gets even worse. Let's go to Fox News. California reporter claims Eric Swalwell's conduct was known. Raises questions about the local support. Steve Tavares claims Alameda County Democrat Party officials were aware of allegations against Swalwell. This was written the 12th. This was written yesterday by C.J. Womack. It goes on to say East Bay political journalist and author Steve Tavares said in a Saturday social media post, these allegations surrounding Eric Swalwell's behavior toward women were widely known among local officials shortly after he entered Congress in 2013. Shortly after being elected to Congress in 2013, his behavior towards women was known by all levels of our local government and Alameda County Democratic Party, Tavares wrote. I tried repeatedly to get the stories out. I can't force women to speak out, and when they choose not to, I didn't push. I also knew that Swalwell was known to threaten with litigation. He was known to threaten with litigation. He was a district attorney for Alameda County. So, yeah, it's not beyond the realm that, hey, if you don't stop, I'm going to sue you. He faces calls to resign. Tavares also emphasized his long-standing coverage of Swalwell. I've covered Eric Swalwell since he was a member of the Dublin City Council, Tavares wrote. Don't get it twisted. Nobody has been more critical of Swalwell over the years. In a separate April 6th edition of His East Bay Insiders newsletter outlined what he described as challenges facing Swalwell closer to home, particularly within Alameda County Democratic circles. He wrote that Swalwell's political standing in his home base remains limited. For a candidate who could plausibly contend for governor of the nation's most powerful state, Eric Swalwell's base of support at home is strikingly thin, which means he must have been trying to get, he had to have been getting, pushes from other counties. Tavares pointed to both ideological and personal factors in explaining that dynamics. The reasons are both ideological and personal. Despite his high-profile opposition to President Trump, many Democratic insiders in Alameda County do not view Swalwell as a reliable progressive. Over time, his positions, support for law enforcement, past rhetoric on border security, and unwavering backing of Israel have placed him out of step with the prevailing politics of the deep blue East Bay. So he was even having problems. It was known. So his antics were well known, even when, back when he first started. And to the point where he wasn't even getting a lot of support from his own county. Let's keep going further. Eric Swalwell under investigation for alleged unauthorized nanny hire. Yep, this gets even better. Filmmaker Joel Gilbert filed a DHS complaint alleging the nanny was paid with campaign funds for roughly 2 years, which is illegal. Michael Sinkowitz of Fox News wrote this yesterday, April 12th, and it goes on to say Eric Swalwell, again, it keeps getting better. Eric Swalwell is under investigation by federal authorities over allegations he violated immigration and employment laws to keep a live-in nanny in the U.S. while she lacked work authorization. The U.S. Citizens Immigration Services confirmed to Fox News that it has referred the matter to the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement for investigation. The USCIS has been collecting information on the allegations involving Congressman Eric Swalwell hiring a Brazilian national as a nanny without lawful work authorization. These allegations are serious. Federal law prohibits employers from knowingly hiring aliens who are not authorized to work in the United States. No employer, including a member of Congress, is above the law. DHS will continue to aggressively enforce statutes to uphold the rule of law to protect American workers. Now, this is where it kind of gets. In a separate complaint filed, in February, DHS with DHS by California filmmaker and political activist Joel Gilbert first reported the post. Swalwell is accused of paying his nanny with campaign funds for roughly 2 years, while she allegedly did not have a valid authorization. Barbosa appears in numerous social media posts with the Swalwell family throughout 2023 and 2024, indicating continued close association and ongoing childcare responsibilities. Since Barbosa was first hired by Swalwell, who's running for California governor, not anymore, in 2021, after coming to the U.S. from Brazil on an au pair visa. Barbosa was paid $3,914 in campaign funds in 2021 and received $46,930 in 2022, according to the Federal Election Commission data. Okay, so he used campaign funds for personal use, which is illegal. You cannot do that. And so as all this mounting pressure comes, Eric Swalwell suddenly suspends his campaign for California governor amid sexual misconduct allegations. This is from CNBC. Also, yes, from yesterday. This happened last night, just after I'm having dinner. This comes across it says, Eric Swalwell on Sunday evening said he was suspending his campaign for California governor on the heels of sexual misconduct allegations against the Democratic lawmaker. To my family, staff, friends, and supporters, I'm deeply sorry for mistakes in judgment I've made in the past. Let me repeat that. I'm going to repeat that again. I want you to let that sink in. To my family, staff, friends, and supporters, I'm deeply sorry for the mistakes in judgment I've made in the past. Is that an admission? Probably not. He's probably trying to get as close to an admission as possible without admitting anything. He goes on to say, I will fight the serious false allegations that have been made, but that's my fight, not a campaign's. Swalwell, married father of 3. Swalwell's announcement came after growing calls by the former allies and others that he drop out of the race to succeed Governor Gavin Newsom, which has sucked. I live in California. Newsom is one of the worst governors we've ever had. And how this guy got 2 terms as a governor in the state of California is beyond my. A fellow Democrat, in a day after the Manhattan District Attorney Office said it was investigating a claim that Swalwell sexually assaulted one of his accusers in New York in 2024. So, in a statement on Sunday, more than 50 former Swalwell staff members urged him to resign from Congress and to quit the gubernatorial contest. So even his own staff was like telling him, it's over, it's done. So let's get into the weeds here, because that is basically that's basically the story. This all happened from like Thursday night afternoon to yesterday. In like 3 or 4 days. Boom, 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 boom. These guys are supposedly, he's supposedly the top Democrat running for the governor's race in California, and he's gone. Top 3 candidates in California governor's race. Polls show some Democrats in a large primary field gaining support, but if the election were held today, 2 Republicans would likely advance to the runoffs, shutting the Democrats out. So, with nearly half, it says here, with nearly half of its voters registered as Democrats and only a quarter registered as Republicans, California is one of the bluest states in the union. Actually, it's more purple than blue. It's because most of these Democrats live in Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area. So if you were to look at the rest of the state, it's mostly red. If you look at the state, it's like the biggest blue parts are like down the coast of California, and the rest is mostly red. The state has gone for Democrats in every presidential election since '92, but Democrats are facing the prospect of being shut out of the governor's office next year, even without a single charismatic Republican winning over left-leaning voters. So let's look at it. Here are the top 3. And this is important because now California has a jungle primary, which means the top two go on to run for governor, right? And I think that the Democrats, it's been said, the Democrats have put it this way because they figured only 2, for years it'd be 2 Democrats running. It'd always be a Democrat being the governor of California until now. It says here, below are the voters' current top 3 choices according to a poll, of 1,200 likely voters conducted between March 31st and April 5th. We're going to get to that poll in just a minute. By the public opinion from Evartis. Chad Bianco, Republican Sheriff of Riverside County, has 14%. Steve Hilton, a conservative commentator and Fox News host, 14%. Eric Swalwell, Democrat representative from California, has the highest level of direct support for a Democrat with 11% of the voters in the poll. 11%. The other ones are Democrats Katie Porter and Tom Steyer, who have respectively 7% for Porter and 11% for Steyer. So let's look at this. Let's go to this poll. I'll bring this up over here. So this is the Evartis poll, and I started not believing much in polls because I figured out how they work. I took a class in statistics, and I realized how polls work. And if you find out how a poll works, you begin to think maybe some of these polls are not really worth their weight. But let me get into this just a minute. As I need a little coffee. So it says in sample size 1,200 California likely June 2026 voters. So these are 1,200 voters, just 1,200, considering the size of California and all the voters that's in it. It's from March 31st to April 5th. Languages are English and Spanish. The most were online and by telephone. And the margin of sampling error is 2.83%, plus or minus 2.83%. And here is one of the questions. Please, on a scale of 1 to 0, were you, by 10 means definitely, and 0 means definitely not, will vote. Definitely vote. 88% in the tracker on April 5th, 88% said they will be voting. 80%. That's pretty high among the sample. And then it goes into, the second question. Do you think that things in California are headed in the right direction? Or do you feel that things are in the wrong track? Right direction, 30%. Wrong direction, 51%. So 1 in every 2 people believe that it's in the wrong track, while 1 in every 3 believes it's in the right direction. Now, here's the one they limited to, because the thing with a poll is you can skew a poll depending on the sample size and the questions you ask. All right. Here is pretty much the only question they asked for this poll. Everything else is pretty much about, who they are, who the people are. And so basically, if the June primary were California were held today, who would you vote for? And here are the candidates. Some of them, and some of them you probably haven't heard. I don't know if you've heard Tony Thurmond, or Matt Mahan, Betty Yee. I don't know if you've heard of Antonio Villagrosa. He was a former LA mayor. But let's get into this. So they asked this. Who would you vote for? Chad Bianco, 14%. Steve Hilton, 14%. And I know you look at this. This is what they do is they took the ones that say yes, we were, and then they said leaning there, and so they added them up. So 14%. Swalwell, 12%. 12%. Tom Steyer, 11%. Katie Porter, 7%. And then the rest is Javier Becerra. They've all got less than 5%. Javier Becerra, Matt Mahan, Antonio Villagrosa, Betty Yee, Tony Thurmond. In fact, I don't even know why Tony Thurmond and Betty Yee are even still in the race. They've got 1 or less than 1%. But for some reason, they're staying in the race until there's and we got less than 30 days left in this until we vote. Really, I'm not joking. I think we're voting on June 2nd or something. I know I'll be there voting. But let's look at this. Yes, Eric Swalwell was the top 3, 12%. So he's the top Democrat running. So why would the top Democrat all of a sudden be forced out? Why would he be forced out? That is a great question, because this is a big thing. Look at, these are all Democrats. These are all Democrats right here. These 2 guys are Republicans, and they're leading it. And a lot of people have been wondering, when are some of these Democrats going to fall off and kind of consolidate? And so, yes, we're going to back so-and-so, because they haven't. They've kept on going. They've kept on going. It is the craziest thing. Now, if you think Eric Swalwell, is running, first of all, let me talk about Tom Steyer. Tom Steyer is this is his 3rd election. His 3rd election running for the governorship of California. Every time he runs when it's an open seat. In other words, the governor is being, he's being termed out, and so he runs, and this is the highest he's gotten in his. He's run 3 times. This is the highest he's gotten. This is, and he's running a lot of ads on TV. I also noticed that within the last couple weeks that there have been a lot of attack ads on Tom Steyer, and everybody. I figured it was coming from Swalwell, because Swalwell had to kick him out because Steyer was coming in, and he was going to end up being the top Democrat, and can't have that. So they started competing against each other. It's slamming each other in ads, and it was almost comical. So do I think Tom Steyer has what it takes? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I know that they're probably trying to think maybe he's the Democrat Trump, the Democrats' version of Trump, the progressives' version of Trump, because he's a billionaire and he does speak well. But this is his third time around. I mean, and he just keeps going and going and going. And then you got Katie Porter over here, and Katie Porter, and I'm going to show you a little thing for her in just a minute. She's not a very likable person. She's vindictive and she's condescending, and in some ways, she's been most known for like being verbally abusive to her staff, being verbally abusive to her husband. And she's not a very nice person. And in fact, let me just go. I'm gonna just play this video of Katie Porter, and basically it was from CBS News, and they're basically asking. Let me bring this up. It's a video I saw from CBS LA and Julie Watts Investigates, and they're asking about high-speed rail. So let me get this. Let me run this video.
High-speed rail. We've already spent more than $14 million. Do you continue or do you cut bait?
I believe it's more than 14 million. Do you want to check your numbers?
Excuse me, 14 billion. Thanks very much. I appreciate that.
You see that? Did you see that? That little condescending. I think it's a little more than that. I don't think. And then she looks over like they don't know what they're talking about. Like how condescending you got to be? She's interviewing you. You're way behind in the polls, and you're gonna smart mouth the reporter. All right, well, let's keep going. This is some example of Katie Porter.
$14 billion on high-speed rail. Do you continue? Do you cut bait?
Well, so the question here is, can we get this done? That's what the governor's going to have to answer that question, and going to have to look at all the evidence and try to understand.
And as governor, do you think we can?
Well, I don't know how all the evidence yet. So what are?
What do you mean you don't have any evidence yet?
Are they in the rearview mirror, or are they going to keep happening? So we know there were challenges with permitting. I think I'm told most of those things are in the rearview mirror, but then we have the forward-going challenges on the cost of operation and the cost of
answer the question.
Construction. Let's be clear, Californians haven't changed their mind. They want this rail. They would like the rail that they were originally voted for and supported, San Francisco to Los Angeles. So what their frustration is that it's not actually built, right? And it's taking longer than they wanted it to, than they were promised it would. I think there's a lesson for any future governor about any kind of infrastructure you're going to undertake. Make sure that you have a realistic, fully funded plan before you embark on the project. And so I think the question to be asked is, can we get the remaining funding, and where is that going to come from? Donald Trump taking away our federal funding is not helping.
And so your answer is you don't know yet. You don't have enough information yet.
That's right. But I think there are very hard questions that need to be asked and answered. And we need to figure out where the delays come from. Are they things that are going to occur again?
Mm-hmm.
So if we have delays because
Oh my gosh.
we don't have workers, that has not been the problem. But that is the kind of delay that could keep occurring. If we have delays because it took a long time to permit and now we have those permits, seems like we can pick up the pace and get this rail done.
All right, so that's Katie Porter. This Matt Mahan. That was Katie Porter. That was, first of all, I cannot believe how condescending, just absolutely condescending she is to the reporter. You need to check your facts. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 14 million. This is actually 14 billion. I'm sorry. What do you think we should continue? Oh, I don't have all the information. What do you mean you don't have all the information? How can you not have all the information? We've been doing this. By the way, we've been doing this high-speed rail, I think, since Jerry Brown proposed it. And we've gotten billions of dollars. We've spent billions of dollars for doing it. And they wanted to run from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And I said, okay, well, how's that going to happen? Because you would have to do that going completely down the coastline. And I don't think people want to see that coastline with a high-speed rail coming by. How's that going to work? And you're not going to want to, not only can you not take out the view, you also got to realize that there's a lot of places down that coastline you just cannot build. Just cannot build. So now they figured, oh, well, the flattest place to do it is in the Central Valley of California, which is where I live. And right now, the high-speed rail is now scheduled to be built from Lodi to Bakersfield. And I'm sorry about that. And so my first thing to ask you is, who wants to go from Lodi to Bakersfield on high-speed rail? Nobody. And considering how much it's going to cost for tickets on high-speed rail, does California want a high-speed rail? Yes, California wants a high-speed rail. They have yet to figure out how to build it. because first of all, the Central Valley, it's a valley. It's surrounded by mountains. If you want to go from San Francisco to LA and you want to go through the Central Valley, you got to figure out how to go to the Central Valley, either going up over the mountains or up through the mountains. And you guys haven't figured this out yet? You guys have been doing this for what, close to a decade now. How have you not figured this out? And she's going to sit there and say, well, I don't have all the evidence. It's basically her way of punting. Her way of punting without, sounding like she's intelligent. And like I said, she's a very vindictive person from what I've been told and from what I've heard. I've seen video of her chewing out her staff and, her husband, and it's just not the nicest and best thing. And so a lot of people would sit there think, well, now that Swalwell's out of the race, let me show this other poll here. I saw this other poll here. Let me close this. This was the 2026 polls, California. This one is from 270 to win. And it says here, the Crete Strategies poll. And again, it actually shows you here, the sample is 700 likely voters. 700 likely California voters. Again, that's way too small of a sample. The biggest one they have here is the Berkeley IGS poll done in March. That one has almost 3,900 likely voters. And again, you look down the line, Steve Hilton. The only one, Emerson College did one on the 11th of March with 1,000 likely voters. And Swalwell was the front runner. Now he's not. Now it's Steve Hilton. The only time Katie Porter had any kind of, if you look at it, 21%, but that was back in December of 2025. If you look at it now, the latest PPIC poll from February, she has now gone from 21 to 13%. And again, Steve Hilton is the front runner. So, and then you look at all the other Biancos, 23% from this poll. So there's a high possibility that what they thought was, and I'm going to go back to the other poll, was that if they can get rid of Swalwell, they can condense the voters and they can be able to get either Steyer or Porter to the finish line to go up against either Bianco or Hilton. The problem is, there are two problems with that. One, voters are very fickle. In other words, you might have a situation here where many of Swalwell's supporters might as well go, I'm not going to vote. I don't like any of the other candidates. I don't like Tim. I'm not going to vote. And then there's a possibility that his supporters don't even go to Steyer or Porter. They go to one of these other people down here, maybe to Javier Becerra or Matt Mahan, because there's always that possibility. So just because he's out of the race doesn't mean it trickles down all the way to Steyer or Porter. It means that you've complicated it enough where you had too many Democrats running at the same time, thinking that it would only be Democrats to win the race, and then you get Hilton and Bianco, who do have a following, especially Chad Bianco. He's the Riverside sheriff, who's been all over social media, and Steve Hilton has been on all the talk shows. And they're pretty much the possibility that on June 2nd, we could be looking at having two Republicans running for the governorship of California. So I'm gonna finish this off. I'm gonna click out here of OBS here, and I'm gonna finish this off on the other side. So just hold on for a minute. All right, so I know this video is long. I mean, whenever I talk politics, and I like to delve into, because when I saw this happening in real time, I was trying to figure out what in the world is really going on. What is going on? It was kind of crazy to watch the Democratic frontrunner all of a sudden get knocked out of the California governor's race. And I'm going to keep this really short on this back end. My thinking is that I think the biggest reason why Swalwell was taken out, not only for the Democrats in California to kind of consolidate their numbers, but I think there was a worry that if Swalwell did make it to the primary, whether it was against Bianco or Hilton, this stuff was going to come out. This stuff was going to come out, and they were going to have, and people were going to have issues in voting for a guy who was under investigation, had these allegations against women. And especially if you're, and I think it would have even been harder if he was going against Chad Bianco, because Bianco is a sheriff. You have law enforcement, doing a debate with a guy who's under investigation for sexual allegations against women, and it was interesting because within hours of this coming out, it was like almost everybody pulled their endorsements from him. Pelosi pulled her endorsement. Newsom pulled his endorsement. Adam Schiff, who is not one of my top guys, either, he pulled his endorsement, and it just became absolutely crazy to watch this happen in real time. And it almost felt. I mean, I know I don't want to I know what this will sound like when I say this, but it almost sounded like a mugging. Like these allegations came out. Somehow these women were encouraged to speak up. And when they spoke up, all of a sudden Eric Swalwell is now the guy on the outside, looking in. It's most likely he's going to end up losing his seat if he doesn't resign first in Congress. And then the people in Alameda County are definitely going to have to figure out who they're going to have to represent them, and can they find somebody who is worth their values. They basically, it is funny that they were sitting there saying, well, he's not really progressive enough. And trust me, I grew up in the Bay Area. There are parts of the Bay Area that are very progressive. There are parts of the Bay Area that are very purple. People, they're moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans. These are people who see both sides of the issue. And there's a lot of that area up there, especially I believe in San Mateo County, in some areas it's very purple. And I think not a lot of conservatives or even moderate Republicans even speak up. I found it funny, just telling this story really quick, when Chesa Boudin was being removed from office, and he was saying that, this recall effort is being led, it's a Republican-led effort. And I was like, they had 85,000 signatures to have him, recalled out of office. He was their attorney general, or their district attorney in San Francisco. And I joked and said, I don't think you can find 85,000 Republicans in San Francisco to sign it. I think a lot of people in the state of California are starting to get fed up with a lot of the promises that aren't being kept. And a lot of the other things that are happening that are being detrimental to the great state of California. I can go into a lot more details of stuff that I think that should be going on here economically. But I'm not going to get into that here. I just wanted to present this story about the downfall of Eric Swalwell and how all of a sudden this happened within just 3 or 4 days. It wasn't like a long slow. It wasn't like it had started like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was like it happened on Friday, and by Sunday night he was gone. And it was just kind of shocking to see how it all happened. But yeah, I don't talk politics too much because I know that you all have different opinions on politics, and I respect all those opinions, and I have friends of mine who are Democrat. I have friends of mine who are Republican. I have friends of mine who are independents. I have people who are liberals and friends of mine who are conservatives. I listen to everything that they give me, and I may not always agree what they say, but I respect them for their opinions, and that's the way I run when it comes to politics. And I only ask people to do the same thing with me. If you want to know my opinion, I'll tell you. But I ask you just respect my opinion because it's my opinion, But I've gone way over with this episode. I'm glad to be back, and I hope you've enjoyed this show. If you haven't already, go down, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications so you always know when new videos are uploaded. Give me a big like on the video. It does help me in the algorithm and get this video out to more and more people. Share this out to your friends, family, and neighbors. Let them know what I'm doing over here on with the show. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this whole situation, because I think Eric Swalwell is going to be out of a job probably within the next month. But with all that being said, I'm Goose. You've been watching On With The Show. Thank you very much. I will see you all on the other side.